I'm glad I'm in my home country for the first time since my election, and I'm very grateful for the hospitality, the celebration, and all the welcomings and the sacrifice by the young people in Nigeria. You made me happy, and I can assure you that I will not let you down. It is a historical and defining moment of the current youth generation for initiating a campaign that will put an end to election violence. The Commonwealth Youth Council, being the largest and most diverse youth-led organization in the world, is leading the campaign tagged Youth Campaign Against Election Violence in some selected Commonwealth countries. With the establishment of Commonwealth Youth Council, the entire population of the Commonwealth youth are now united and coordinated. The CYC was established by the young people in the Commonwealth and endorsed by the heads of governments in the Commonwealth, and is established to play an integral role of advancing youth development agenda and coordination of activities and policies of the Commonwealth in the field of youth. The Council works for and represents the voice of all young people within the Commonwealth, and it is the official and recognized voice of more than 1.2 billion young people in the Commonwealth. Commonwealth Youth Council provides a framework for youth-led initiatives and coordinates, harmonizes, and unites all youth organizations within the Commonwealth countries. We are determined to set a legacy to be remembered to the end of time. The Commonwealth Youth Council notes that there is a recurrent loss of lives of young people in some Commonwealth countries during democratic elections, and most times lead to loss of lives and properties, and subsequently causing political and economic instability. The Youth Campaign Against Election Violence is a campaign which we are going to launch here today in Abuja, Nigeria, and this is considering the imminent general elections in the country. And subsequently, this campaign will be launched in other Commonwealth countries. And according to Human Rights Watch, election violence have cost many lives of young people in some Commonwealth nations. For instance, in Nigeria, the violence ensued after the 2003 general elections had left at least 100 young people dead and many others injured. European Union observers also reported that at least 300 young people were killed in violence linked to the 2007 elections. And it's equally reported that election violence has been on the rise in Nigeria, with a high level of casualties, loss of lives and properties in the last general elections in 2011, which almost resulted to a religious and ethnic crisis. The crisis cost lives of some innocent youth service corps members. The crisis mostly affected the northern states, especially Kaduna, Bauchi, Kano, and have left more than 800 young people dead. And relief officials also estimate that more than 65,000 people were displaced. Therefore, the Youth Campaign Against Election Violence is targeted toward achieving zero electoral violence, zero loss of lives, and zero loss of properties. Some of the objectives of the Youth Campaign Against Election Violence are: number one, to achieve zero level of election violence, zero cost of lives and properties, to enlighten young people on the danger of the election violence, to educate young people on the electoral procedures and elections complaint process and procedures, to train and inculcate the discipline of peace, tolerance, and obedience, to coach young people on proper methods and best practices of elections inspections, to enlighten all election stakeholders like electoral officers, security personnel, political party agents, journalists, observers, etc., on the need to have harmony and good working relations during elections. Number 7, to identify the best practice of achieving peaceful elections. The Nigerian youth are setting another record for leading a global peace model that will save millions of lives of young people globally. The campaign is aimed to be stepped down to the 6 geopolitical zones in the country, and equally to states and local levels. The purpose of this meeting here today is to educate young people on the best practice to establish peace and assure and establish social cohesion during electoral processes, and to develop a model that will ensure effective implementation of the campaign at grassroots levels. Youth are determined to stop any sort of violence, and with this campaign, we will achieve free, fair, and peaceful elections in all the 53 Commonwealth nations. Youth engage in violence because they feel neglected and unsupported by the leaders. Poverty is another cause for youth violence, and it is sometimes artificially instilled. Politicians also motivate young people to engage in violence for their selfish interest. Ignorance of youth's democratic rights and procedures is another cause for electoral violence. And youth campaign against election violence is therefore aimed to engage in all relevant stakeholders in curtailing the roots of election violence. YCAEV will train and induct youth election peace marshals who will step down the campaign at regional, state, and local levels. The YCAEV state marshals will also appoint and work with youth for peace marshals at grassroots levels. All youth campaign against election violence marshals will be provided with identities, uniforms, and kits. And similar structures shall be established in all local governments in the country. The youth campaign against election violence youth tax, therefore, will have the opportunity to travel around the Commonwealth nations, because the campaign is going to be piloted in Nigeria, and the appointed YCAEV marshals, they will be sponsored to travel across the Commonwealth nations to train and share their experiences with their colleagues in other Commonwealth nations. This is another opportunity where we can establish a training, a program first in Nigeria, where we can enhance and establish young people capacity in our home country, so that we can take them further to other Commonwealth countries. They can have experience and share their experience equally with other young people in the Commonwealth. So they will also be there to also educate other young people on the models and the best practices we are going to implement here in Nigeria. And I am confident of the youth resolve to addressing the menace of election violence. I thank you and welcome you for coming to the official launching of the youth campaign against election violence. And I call on you all to engage in similar campaign, and I call on youth-led initiatives to sign off to the youth campaign against election violence. But before I take my leave, I would like to announce the names of the youth-led task force that will lead the youth campaign against election violence in Nigeria. And soon we will be having them in our secretariat in London for a proper induction. And I would like to mention their names as follows. We have Comrade Olowale James Ajani. We have